7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things in life that suck: death, taxes, and 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a die-hard podcast for Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today is episode 12, entitled Lion Tamers. So today on New Stripe City, we'll go ahead and recap our past preseason game against Detroit, where the Bengals came out victorious, 30-14. We'll also discuss some of the positives and some of the negatives from the game, and we'll also talk about our upcoming game this weekend against the Jaguars. Let's get into it. So starting things off, we have a couple of injury updates. We got a vote of confidence from Brandon LaFell, who returned to practice today, Monday, and it looks like he may be filling things out to determine whether or not he will be able to return. We also got some updates on Tyler Eifert. Tyler Eifert seems like he's getting back into the swing of things, but he is still questionable for an early return week 1. We might see him maybe week 2 or week 3. Tyler Kroft is also rehabbing as well, and Darqueze Dennard was able to finally take the boot off, and hopefully we can get him closer to a return to that lineup that is decimated with injuries. First, I want to announce for the newcomers that New Stripe City is available on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe so you can follow all of our episodes and so you never miss out on any of the episodes that are uploaded. You can also find our articles on www.newstripecity.blogspot.com. We always are loading up content there. It's a blog, so we post periodically, but we do post articles there. I actually posted this past Saturday my way too early 53. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at AMBA513. You can also like us on Facebook, where I will do live streams to voice my thoughts on events that cannot wait until the podcast. We'll also upload those to YouTube. You can check our YouTube out at New Stripe City. So with that being said, I won't waste any more of your time. We'll get into Bengals Real Talk. And the first thing on Bengals Real Talk that I want to talk about is the Lions game. So this past Thursday, our Bengals took on the Detroit Lions. It was Marvin Jones' first game back. You could just kind of feel the atmosphere that was out there. It was a very physical game. There were emotions riding high on both sides. Even though it was really only a preseason game, there still was a point to be made. We watched Marvin Jones come in and make a couple of plays, mainly on Dre Kirkpatrick, which was not a vote of confidence for us. What do we really expect from Dre? He's still a work in progress. We still have to see what he can do. But I definitely noticed whenever Marvin was on Pac-Man, there were no completions. Like, Pac-Man made it a point to shut him down. And there was a play, I believe, on the sideline where he gave him a little bit of a shove just to let him know that, hey, it is a little bit personal. So as we know, Marvin Jones decided to leave our team in the offseason. It sucked for me, honestly, because he was one of my favorite players. I was really on the guy from the moment we drafted him out of the 5th round. I went and looked up his tape at Cal. The guy just flew off of the tape. It was really ridiculous to see him fall all the way into the 5th round. And I remember telling guys that draft, no lie, that when we picked him, that he was going to end up being better than Sanu, who we picked earlier in that draft. And he really found his own niche here in Cincinnati. He developed into the best wideout across from A.J. Green. And it just seemed that everything was falling perfectly into place. And then he decided to leave. It kind of caught me off guard because the Bengals stepped up to the plate, offered him the money that he was willing to accept. but he decided not to take it. He wanted a bigger role in Detroit, and that's cool and all, but I really felt that it's going to be a move that he regrets. Marvin Jones really needs to be prepared for the decision that he made. I mean, you're talking about a franchise who had two of the greatest, Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, quit on them. Okay? So they not only, decided that they didn't want to play for the Lions, they decided that they would rather not play football than play for the Lions. So I hope that in retrospect, he sees the situation that he had in Cincinnati really wasn't that bad. I mean, when you really look at it, had he stayed here, he'd still be the second option right now. Mohamed Sanu left, okay? Brandon Tate right now is starting. That's scary. So Marvin Jones would have been an important part of this offense. I mean, he already was when he was here. It was just not enough balls to go around, and I understand that. But sometimes you have to understand that it's more than just production. It's about being in a winning system. It's about being a family, and there's no I in team, man. And to me, I never thought that he was a me type guy, but apparently, I guess he is. So kudos to Marvin Jones. I mean, good luck in Detroit, brother. I don't know how that is going to play out for you, but if it presents itself in the future, man, the door is always open for you to return to Cincinnati. So we'll let you have a couple of cold winters and some of those losing seasons up there, man. Hopefully you'll change your mind after that. So back to the game. I really like this game. It almost was a little bit of a reversal of that first game where it was heavy flashes on defense. In this game, the offense flashed and came to play. You could see guys like AJ Green, even Brandon Tate was out there making plays. Yes, Brandon Tate was making plays. That really did happen. Tyler Boyd, that's no surprise. I mean, I've been telling you guys, Boyd is legit. But just seeing other guys on the offense make an impact was just amazing to see. Some of the positives, I'd say the running game. Jeremy Hill has definitely got that pep back in his step, and he is looking like he's going to wreak havoc. I know some of you guys might have saw my celebration on Instagram or in some of the Facebook groups. I mean, man, that was legit. I don't care if it's a preseason game or not. That film does not lie. Jeremy Hill is looking like the old Jeremy Hill we saw from his rookie year. So stay tuned for him. But just the decisiveness, the running with power, the cuts, oh man, it was really nice to see. Jeremy Hill is definitely primed for a big season. I'd also say some of the positives were just the offense in general, the way that they moved down the field, the way that they were able to manage the game, the way that Andy commanded the offense. There were several different segments of the offense that were shown in this game, and they're still missing Tyler Eifert. They're still missing some key cogs. Brendan LaFell didn't even play. I mean, this team is so deep and so talented that it's almost mind-blowing. We dominated Detroit. I mean, Detroit isn't that great of a team, which I don't know why Marvin Jones went there, because they're not that great of a team. They don't really have a great history, but it's still a decent team to go out and perform against. I mean, they do have a pretty solid corner over there in Darius Slay, and Brandon Tate made a move on him, man, for a first down. Ken Zampese making sure that his offensive strategy and philosophy is implemented just spoke volumes. I mean, we saw it play out. And AJ Green is already in midseason form with another amazing catch. That's all I'm saying. I don't see AB making catches like that. Okay? That catch is just the signature AJ Green catch. And I think AJ is going to be in for a big season this year. We've never seen AJ get a monster number of targets. Well, boy, if it happens this year, we'll see who the best receiver in the league is. You heard it here first. Moving on defense, we look very solid. Nick Vigil was able to play with the ones at one point. I mean, we were all over the field. We were all over these guys. The secondary stepped it up. Darren Smith, a guy that I've been big on for the longest out of Fresno State. Ever since the day that I turned on the film on this guy when we drafted him, I thought that he was a steal. So it was great to see him get in and get an opportunity against some decent competition. It was a little bit of the first and second team mixed in, but he still made a great play on the ball and returned it for a touchdown. So the defense had some good highlights in that game, and just the overall team, man, they showed the confidence, they showed the mental fortitude to be able to stick it out and come back with their backs up against the wall. So I really appreciated this performance. It really was a blowout, but Tyler Boyd, man, the transition to Tyler Boyd, it's almost so good that you almost forget about Marvin Jones. And that's no knock on Marvin Jones at all. But Tyler Boyd, man, and I told guys this. I told guys when everyone wanted Coleman, when everyone wanted Doxton, when everyone wanted anybody else, the main guy that I was talking about was Tyler Boyd. As soon as I turned on the film on this guy, I mean, you can go back to my tweets way back before the draft even started and all of that. I was big on Tyler Boyd coming to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not the only person that was big on Tyler Boyd. I'm not saying anything like that. But I think that a lot of people overlooked him for guys like Laquan Treadwell. None of those guys came close to his production. A lot of people forget that Tyler Boyd was actually supposed to be the number one receiver in this class. He was projected by some, okay? The majority as the number one receiver coming in to this draft class. And then he caught a DUI. Which was really silly. If you ever read the backstory on his DUI, he was basically profiled, and I mean, he didn't have a history of any off the field problems or anything, so it really was ridiculous. But anyway, that's why he failed. I mean, there were GMs that said that he was a first round talent at the combine, and I mean, the guy ran a slow 40 time, but so did Laquan Treadwell. It was still faster than Treadwell's. So I'm glad to see that Tyler Boyd is finally getting the respect that he deserves, because this guy is a legitimate threat. The guy produced every year he was at Pitt. I'm talking about from being a freshman to the very end. The guy has produced. The guy can play any position that you need him to. He's the most versatile receiver. He's the most experienced one performance-wise. So I'm not surprised to see what he's doing here in the Natty. Negatives about the game. Mike Nugent, man. What?
Bruh.
Mike Nugent, man. We need to get him a first-class Spirit Airways flight delayed ticket out of Cincinnati, man. We got to get him out of there, man. I mean, I'm an Ohio State fan. You know, I respect Mike Nugent. I remember Mike Nugent back in his days from Ohio State. But, I mean, there's some ties that just have to be cut, and he's one of them. We don't really have too many other options. I believe we have Hoker, who has returned from injury and will be kicking against the Jaguars. So we'll get to see what he offers. But, man, the time to separate is now, man. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know what it is, but he's just not there. I mean, we're waiting until the second half for this guy to make a field goal. Like, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So we can't have this guy come back to bite us with a missed field goal in an important game like Denver. Yeah, like Denver. You can name a whole bunch of games. To me, I still feel that he killed the momentum for us in the Denver game last year that was for the number one seed. I mean, that's no blame. I mean, of course, an entire team loses a game together, but that game alone, to me, he kind of shifted the momentum in that game. I mean, if you go up 17-0 against the Denver Broncos in that game, the way that it was going, the Broncos would have gave up. But when he missed that field goal and it was a 14-0 game and they were able to, make it a 2-score game, I mean, it changed the tide. So, Mike, man, hey, you're an Ohio State legend, man. But in the NFL and in the Bengals, I can't have you holding our team back, sir. So, hopefully we get a replacement in there. Hopefully this Hoker or Hocker. I don't know how to say the guy's name, but hopefully he can kick. I don't care if I can say his name right. As long as a guy can kick, I'm good with it. A lot of people talked about the black kicker that we have. I believe his name is John Brown. Correct me if I'm wrong. He actually made a couple 65-yard field goals, but the scoop on him is that he actually was signed and then he got hurt. So I don't believe that he's going to be able to play this season, but he's another guy that will be interesting to keep your eye on. But all in all, a great performance. I can't wait to see what this Jacksonville game is going to look like. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and segue into that. So Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a pretty good team. I actually live down here in Florida. I've been watching them build this team from the Maurice Jones-Drew days to now with Allen Robinson and Blake Bortles. And they kind of remind me a lot of the Cincinnati Bengals, honestly. I mean, there's similarities, there's differences, but they're still pretty similar. They have an up-and-coming receiver with Allen Robinson. He's kind of like a poor man's A.J. Green, but we saw him light it up last year with 15 touchdowns. They've been telling me about this guy down here for about 3 years. So Allen Robinson is a good guy. You got Allen Hurns on the other side, who was a steal. If I'm not mistaken, he was an undrafted receiver out of Miami. And, I mean, we saw what he did last year, but we saw that he was a pretty dependable receiver for the past 2 years. So they've got the total package at wide receiver. They also have a new bruiser in Chris Ivory. That's going to be an interesting matchup for us to see how we do against Ivory. Ivory actually has a chip on his shoulder with the Cincinnati Bengals because from an interview I was watching with him last year, the Bengals actually had him on their draft board, and we actually called him on draft day and told him that we were taking him off of our draft board due to some injury red flags. So Chris Ivory is a guy I think that they kind of overpaid for a little bit, not much. He was very dependable. I had him on my fantasy team last year, but I felt like they should have went after a guy like Lamar Miller. Maybe Lamar Miller wanted some more carries, but Chris Ivory is a great signer for those guys. Blake Bortles, who's been a pretty decent quarterback, will throw interceptions, but overall he's pretty solid. They're playing in a passing offense, so I would say that it's key to see what we can do against them as far as our pass defense. It definitely will be tested early and often. They also have Julius Thomas, another big target. Mercedes Lewis. Their weakness, I would probably say, is their offensive line. Our defensive line should be able to eat off of them a lot. Their defense is revamped. They've got Malik Jackson now. They've got some other pieces on that defense. We won't be able to see Jalen Ramsey, which I kind of wanted to see that matchup with him and A.J. Green. But unfortunately, we won't be able to see that because they're sitting Ramsey out for the entire preseason. They got some talent at linebacker. Telvin Smith out of Florida State. He's a pretty good linebacker. They've got some unproven guys, but overall, it's going to be a pretty decent matchup. So things to keep an eye on. I'd probably say, let's see how that pass defense does. I know that our pass rush will do pretty well against them. Let's also see how we can stop the run. I'd like to see what our run defense can do. I'd also like to see more Carlos Dansby. He's actually been a pretty bright spot if you paid attention. Dansby has been very productive, but I'd like to see what he can do against a guy like a Julius Thomas. I'd also like to see how we can stop a guy like Allen Robinson. Pac-Man and Allen Robinson, if those guys match up, I'll be tuned in to that matchup. A.J. Green, he's going to have his way. It's A.J. Green. But it's going to be interesting to see how we do against these guys. And I think some of the keys to victory will be pressuring the quarterback. I also would say containing that passing attack that's pretty explosive. And other than that, man, we should be good to go. So with that being said, I will go ahead and jump into my way too early 53. This is what y'all have been waiting for. So starting things off on the way too early 53, of course, we can start here with the receiver position. So I had A.J. Green, I had Tyler Boyd, I had Brandon Tate. Those guys to me are locks right now, given the injury status. So who are the other guys that I see making the roster? Okay, we're going to go with a Mario Alford in there. We're going to also throw in Cody Core, the rookie, who's been pretty solid, having a pretty decent preseason. We'll also throw in James Wright. He's a guy that I feel has to make this roster given his history with this team. And also Alex Erickson, the surprise. So I have us taking I have us keeping 7 receivers. We're moving on to the offensive line, where I see us keeping Andrew Whitworth at tackle, Said at tackle. I also see us keeping Jake Fisher, and I also see us keeping Eric Winston. I mean, he's a veteran that always sticks around. Moving on to the guards, of course, we're going to keep Clint Bowling. Of course, we're going to keep Kevin Zeitler, but we also have surprise guys on there like Trey Hopkins. He's been busting his butt for a couple years now. I see us also keeping Christian Westerman, TJ Johnson as the backup center. So that line, I feel like, is going to be what could look like the final 53 that we'll be looking at. We've also, of course, can move on to tight end, where I see us, of course, keeping Tyler Eifert. I don't see anything really changing there. Tyler Kroft. I also see CJ Uzomah there. I feel like they're going to use Ryan Hewitt in a couple of ways. So that is my tight end set. If we move on to fullback, now this one was pretty hard because I had a hard time cutting Jeff Luke. I really did. I really wanted to keep him on the roster, but I just feel that he's a guy that they could possibly keep on the practice squad. He's looked pretty dependable at fullback. But I'm going to go with Ryan Hewitt there. I mean, he's got the extension. He does what he needs to do at H-back. And, I mean, he's pretty solid. Moving on to quarterbacks, of course, I believe that we only keep 2 of them, Andy Dalton and A.J. McCarron. No surprises there. I don't really see us keeping a third-string emergency quarterback. Running back, nothing changes there. I mean, you've got Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard, Rex Burkhead, and Cedric Pierman. I mean, I really don't see them making a change at running back, especially off of the heels of the solid performance from Rex Burkhead. So, after we've taken care of the offense, we'll move on to the defense. So at defensive end, Marcus Hunter's run out of gas, and I have Carlos Dunlap, Marcus Hardison. I also have Michael Johnson and Will Clark. Those are my 4 ends that I see the Bengals keeping. Hardison is a D tackle / D end, so I see him taking on that Wallace Gilberry role where he kind of interchanges in between both of those roles during the game. At defensive tackle, I see us keeping Domata Peko. I also see us keeping Pat Sims, Deshaun Williams, who was a guy that came on strong last season, and Geno Atkins. So those are the guys in the locks that I have in my final 53 on the defensive line. Moving on to linebacker, no surprises here with Ray Maluga. I have Nick Vigil making it. Of course, Carlos Dansby, Paul Dawson. It was a little bit tricky at will linebacker because we all know that Vontaze Burfict is suspended for the first couple of games. So I have Vincent Ray in there. I also have Marquise Flowers making the roster. He was able to stay healthy this year. So he's able to make the roster. So then we'll step into the secondary where things got a little tricky. The guys that I have here are Drake Kirkpatrick. I also have Josh Shaw. I switched him from that safety role to the corner, just like the Bengals have done. Also see us keeping Chris Lewis-Harris. He's a guy that just tends to stick on this roster. I could see him sticking other than those other guys. They don't really have too much experience for me to feel comfortable with sticking them on the final roster. We also have Adam Pac-Man Jones and Darquez Denard. And of course, we have William Jackson III on the PUP list. I'll go over the PUP list later just so you guys don't get freaked out. Let's see, at safety, I have one surprise. So I have George Iloka, I have Darren Smith, Darren or Duran, however you would like to say it. And then I have Sean Williams, and then I have the surprise with Jimmy Wilson, which this is a wild card. It could be Clayton, it could be Jimmy, it could be Floyd Raven, but I see it playing out as Jimmy. I think this third game will kind of determine who is going to be the guy that sticks at that position. So with that said, I'll move on to special teams. On special teams, I see Kevin Huber making it. I really want to take Mike Nugent off of here, but until we can see whether Zach Coker can actually kick, then I'm going to leave him there for now. Clark Harris, who's always made this team as a long snapper. I know you guys don't want Brad St. Louis walking through that door anymore. Neither do I. But then we'll get into some of the reserves. So I kind of have us putting Billings on that IR spot. We still have John Brown on the IR spot. That's that kicker that I talked about earlier. I have Vontaze Burfict on the suspended list for obvious reasons. On the PUP list, we have Brandon LaFell, Brandon Thompson, and William Jackson III. So those guys will not count towards our final 53 until they are activated off of that PUP list. So that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for listening. As usual, jump in the comment box, subscribe, like, leave me your questions. Check us out on newstripecity.blogspot.com. And I'm looking forward to this game this weekend, man. Let's get it, man. The Bengals, Who Dey Nation, we ready out here, man. I'll leave you guys with a Who Dey all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.